So I became aware of the Burlington Museum Foundation first as a Boy Scout, because our Boy Scout troop back in the 60s went and visited the Joseph Brant Museum in Burlington next to the hospital, the little house there that was Joseph Brant's home. And I can remember thinking, wow, this is very cool that this is the home that the first citizen of Burlington ever lived in. And then fast forward into my early 50s, I was approached, would I consider joining the board, which I did. Our family has been involved in being a contributor, one of the families who've been builders of Burlington. And so we've made a contribution, our family, to the museum. It's a great repository for us for the history and the legacy and the story of Pioneer Petroleums, because Pioneer is a greater Hamilton, Burlington family business that started in Hamilton. We saw it as a great opportunity for our family's story to be shared with others. Pioneer Petroleums was started in 1956 by my father, Murray Hogarth. He looked around for a market to start his own business in and thought Hamilton would be a good market. It was still growing, big enough to expand into without being too small. He found a property on Upper James in Hamilton at Mohawk and started November 29th, 9 p.m. Started with about $30,000, if I'm not mistaken, and got his first site up and going. And that site's never been closed ever since. Here we are, almost more than 60 years later. My father passed away 4 years ago in 2014, but the family was at that time, with my dad's knowledge, working on the sale of the business to a company called Parkland out of Energy out of Calgary, Alberta, actually Red Deer, Alberta. Well, the museum is, first of all, is going to be brought up to modern museum standards. The footprint is going to be substantially expanded. They'll be able to then bring in exhibits from other communities and from around the world even, into the museum, artifacts and programs that are going to be beneficial to the local community, to educators, to the local citizenry, students. And museums, the whole aspect of museums and the way people look at artifacts and history is changing to an online experience. And so although the physical asset will be there in a building and a structure to house all the history of Burlington artifacts, it will also have an outreach beyond the brick and mortar of the building. Hoping that many families will step up and donate funds to help keep their story, their family story alive. Maybe they've been in a family business, or maybe it's not a family business. Maybe it's the story of a great aunt who was a fabulous teacher in the community, or a principal, or a philanthropist, or a community leader. Doesn't have to necessarily be a business person. Can be stories. Everybody has a story, and if you think your story is worth sharing and keeping the story alive for generations to come, then a really great place to be a repository of that story would be the Burlington Museum itself.